of sempersarah.com and the creator of Just Roll With It Bootcamp.com as well, but that's a holistic health and wellness workshop seminar series. It's on national tour right now through the U.S. It's geared primarily toward disabled veterans. We serve civilians as well. We don't discriminate. Anyone's allowed to come. So, but given that I'm a veteran, you know, that's kind of where my service has started. So a little bit about my background. I served 7 years active duty in the United States Marine Corps, which included 2 combat tours to Iraq. My last assignment on active duty, I was the youngest ever Deputy Director of Geospatial Intelligence for the Marine Corps Intelligence Activity. Who needs a nap? That's a long one. That gives me a headache. So I left active duty in 2009, and I served as a volunteer in the Middle East and Europe, and then just kind of kept bouncing around the world for almost a year before I came back to the States and went back to basically kind of working for the man in Washington, D.C. In intelligence work there in that area, I mean, you can throw a stick and hit someone who wants to hire you there in D.C., but I feel like I managed to find a pretty unique little niche within a niche there. Intellectually was so stimulating. Here's another long one for you, a geospatial, I even forget, sociocultural geospatial human terrain analyst. So I got to combine sociology, geography, anthropology, all of this in the context of intelligence work. So intellectually very stimulating, but definitely was not serving what felt like was my purpose, and frankly was in direct contradiction to some of my core character traits. I mean, we were hunting human beings. I mean, it just kind of hit me when you're talking about that. Like, it hit me one day at work. I'm like, I'm hunting humans. Like, this is bizarre. I don't want to do this anymore. And I actually, at 28 years old, had a stroke at work. And talk about mind-body connection, right? I think my body was like, stop it or I will kill you. Stop doing this. So, in the last year, I founded Semper Sarah just over a year ago. I adapted the Marine Corps motto of Semper Fidelis, which means always faithful, and I turned it into a neat little acronym that stands for always be sincere, empathetic, motivated, perseverant, engaged and excited, and resilient. And then I have faith as kind of the core to all of that. And so in the last year, I've created this holistic health and wellness seminar I mentioned earlier. I've had my first book published. I'm running a private and corporate level health coaching practice, serving veterans for free. So that's a big part of my give back, is coaching and mentoring for free, as well as health coaching executive teams at corporations. I've spoken all over the US and in the UK. I have a yoga and adventure retreat in Costa Rica at the end of July, which you're all invited to, sempersarah.com/retreat. And so all of that sounds like awesome, right? Yeah, I did that in a year, and like by type A standards, like I'm the woman, you know, I did it, right? Well, even just in the last year, I did my 31st move. I suffered my 13th and 14th traumatic brain injury. And something else happened in the last year, I don't know. But beyond that even, I've been struck by lightning, hit by a car twice. I have 7 herniated discs in my back and neck. I have scoliosis, arthritis, spinal stenosis, post-traumatic stress disorder, had a form of breast disease with the tumor that was removed a few years ago, and then that stroke that I mentioned. So, and that's not even the full list of my traumas. I'm 31, and I feel like I should be dead or in a hospital when I list those things, right? And I can say unequivocally, if I had to pinpoint one thing that literally saved my life, was yoga. And so now, to answer the question, what am I devoted to? I would say, in one word, service. So my definition of service is absolutely changed. I mean, to go from, you know, we'd say this, moto kitty. I'm a moto kitty Marine, and run, and work, and push. And for me, on a spiritual level, I actually went from being essentially an atheist to being a Christian right around the time that I was deciding to become a Marine. So service meant in a very traditional Christian definition, serving Christ, and that was my purpose. And now, since I've left the Marine Corps and my faith has grown and diversified and deepened, and in so many ways, I guess the point is, even though the definition has changed, the concept has remained the same in service. And 3 things I think of that service means to me. Service is faith and love in action. And so it's great that we have concepts and core character traits, and I mean, that's like what's in my book, is like describing what I believe to be the core character traits, and I use like yogic concepts, but in kind of layman's terms. But we have concepts, we have to take action, and doing, whether it's going to Africa or serving here at home or serving just that intimate relationship, that one other person. Are you serving them? Are they serving you? And so I see it as faith and love and action. Part 2, it makes me think of self-care and serving myself. And so often we think of service as this removed thing that we're doing for others. And I talk to a lot of women. I come from a very type A community, the Marines, and I was a military Olympic athlete for 5 years, and on all the reasons I was raised that way, to be like a little machine. And it's taken some conditioning to do, and so to tell myself, like, I have to take care of myself first. You have to put your oxygen mask on first before assisting others. How many times have we heard that on the airplane? Think about that in your life. I mean, maybe that sounds cliche to some of us, but how many of us actually practice that? And if you run yourself ragged and push and push and push, and then you collapse, what good are you to anyone else? And I want to share a short story about one of my best friends, because I think it really encapsulates this lesson. So one of my best friends in the whole world, nationally recognized collegiate athlete, just rock star athlete, this girl, top performer in the Marine Corps. And by the way, the combat ban that was recently lifted for women, we've been in combat for years, by the way. So my friend is out on combat tours, full scale, picture it, getting shot at, shooting, etc. She's out on these combat patrols with her Marines, so she's an officer, she's got all her Marines underneath her, platoon, 32 men underneath her. And she collapses on the side of the road because her eating disorder has gotten so exacerbated by the stress that she's been under that she was malnourished and basically on the brink of death, and had to be medically evacuated from Iraq to go home. And she was devastated. She was suicidal. I mean, that was her whole definition of self-worth. And I must serve, I must serve, I must serve, I must serve. Never thinking about herself. And that's kind of an extreme example, but how many of us do that in our lives in pursuit of serving something else to the detriment of ourselves? So part 3, though, this may seem contradictory, makes me think service makes me remember to keep my mind off myself. And so in the Marines, I always did the best. Like performance-oriented wise, leadership-wise, I did the best when I was constantly thinking about my Marines, and I got out of my own head. And like on my first deployment to Iraq, my nickname was Pep Rally. Pep Rally. It's kind of weird. You're in Iraq. You're in a war zone. You're, all this crazy stuff. Because I was the happiest Marine in Iraq. But I was always giving gifts to my Marines and mentoring them. And we'd work 16-hour shifts, and I'm talking not one day off for 7 months at a time, every single day. And I would stay after and mentor Marines and talk to them and make gift baskets for the Marines who weren't getting stuff from home. So I was Pep Rally. And initially was a little bit selfishly motivated because I was like, I'm going to kind of pretend to be happy, but it became real. It got my mind off myself and onto others. So my reasons 2 and 3, it's kind of that yin and yang of everything in life, right? And the light and the dark, and the push and the pull, and the heavy and the light. I've got to think about myself, but I got to think about others. And for me, that word service just instantly reminds me of that. When I start to get really self-absorbed, I'm like, and now in the work I do now as an entrepreneur, it can get really heavy sometimes. Like even though I've built teams, which, yeah, I got to echo that big time. Like, you got to have teams. I can start to beat myself up. And as soon as I realize, like, it doesn't have anything to do with me, it's about who I'm serving, that really helps me let go and really just roll with it. I'm like, it's not even about me. I don't have to be perfect. Take care of myself to, serve myself so I can serve others, but then letting go and thinking about those who I'm serving in that mission. It's kind of long. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Sarah. Next speaker is a friend of the Hanuman